in today's video we'll touch on rent control in Denmark and all its specific rules and exceptions. Just note, this video comes from the homeowner's perspective, and its purpose is to help people that are looking to buy a house or an apartment know what you are potentially getting into. There is rent control for most properties in Denmark. What this means is that you, as the owner of a specific house or an apartment, can't rent officially, so I stress officially, can't rent a specific property for more than a set amount that will depend on your commune, the size of the property, whether the property is furnished or not, recently renovated, and a whole lot of other considerations. One key thing to stress is that this control price, so this rent control price, is usually far below the market value for the property. Why rent control and the ins and outs of rent control are beyond the scope of this video. What you should know is that Denmark in many ways is a left-leaning country, especially on economic issues. And in Denmark, rent control is seen as a standing in for the little person, standing in for the little guy, making sure that the people that are renting don't spend the majority of their net income in housing. One key here is that you can't really cheat rent control. If you try to skirt the rules of rent control, you might get into serious trouble. And serious trouble will mean money. Specifically, what happens here is that you as a specific owner, you can't rent more than this official rate, right? And if your tenant, so the person is renting from you, by some reason discovers that they're paying more than they should have in the official rates or decides that they're paying too much, they can raise this to the government institution that is called the rental board. So this is an official institution that then prices in the specific case and says whether this tenant has been paying more than they should have based on all the parameters I had just said before. What this means is that if the rental board decides that you as the owner of the property have been renting for more than you should have, you will need to do two things. First, you will need to lower your rate for this specific tenant for the official level, but then, and crucial, you will need to pay them back all the difference between what you have been charging them up to now versus what they should have been paying you per the official rules, right? Up to a point and with caveats, but as well, I mean, this can be meaning a lot of money for a specific property owner. So it's something you should be very, very aware of. How much can you rent for? So the data I have in hand is that for a 70 square meters apartment in Copenhagen, the official rent shouldn't be a lot more than 6,500 krona per month. And when it comes to 100 square meters price, the rent should be around 10,000 krona. So again, probably a big difference between what you see just here and also what you see in the market. But there's one major exception when it comes to rent control, and that is that for buildings built after 1992, there are no rent control rules whatsoever. So if you own an apartment in a building that has been built in, say, 1999 or in 2013, you can rent the apartment for whatever price you want. There's no rental board that's going to be challenging you on that. And again, this is important to notice that it's only for buildings that have been built after 1992. So if you have an apartment that has been built before that and you have renovated the kitchen or you have fully renovated the place or you have furnished it and whatever, it doesn't matter. It has to be a building that has been built after 1992. If you have the renovations and so on, you might be able to get a higher rent control price, but still it's not going to be the same as the full market freedom that you have when the building has been built after 1992. So what does this mean to you as a potential home buyer? If you ever plan to buy to rent, so making this as an investment and not living in the flat and just rent it out, it's a no-brainer that you should look for a place that has been built after 1992. Otherwise, you will be exposing yourself to big risks, and you could even say like you'll be doing charity to someone that will be living in a very cheap apartment for you probably what you're paying for and what the expenses of the apartment would likely be. If you also look into the future, see that you might be able to be stationed for work for somewhere else for 6 months, or you might be able to travel with your family for whatever reason for also an extended period, also watch out, because at the end of the day, it's the difference between renting your flat at, let's say, 15,000 krona or renting it at 7,000 krona can make a huge difference. So I can tell you my own experience. When I bought my current apartment, which is built in around 2005 or something like that, was that I might be traveling with my family for 6 months somewhere. I might be moving to London for 6 months for work and so on. And I was like thinking, like, if that happens, I want to make sure that when I rent my apartment, I can actually make money from it and help me pay my trip, help me pay my stay in London and so on. If I would have bought a place that I didn't have this opportunity, I might even be thinking of having it as a sunk cost while I was doing all these other activities. So something to keep in mind. Also to keep in mind is that you should look into a lawyer for when you're planning to rent your flat. So it's always good. I mean, it's not that it's a given. A lot of people don't do this, but I think it's a like nice hygiene, nice thing to do as well. Is that if you're going to be renting your property to someone, make sure that the rental agreement is something that you have prepared with a specific lawyer, at least the first time. And then this will be something that will at least help you cover your, in case something happens. 2 more comments before we wrap up. The first one is that this is serious. I have seen friends and colleagues especially, who, for example, when they get stationed to US or when they get stationed somewhere else for work, for let's say 1 year or 2 years, they put their apartments for rent because they say, okay, let's make some money on the side in the meantime. And because they didn't agree on a, let's say, fair price, the renters then took them to the rental board and they had to pay up a lot of money. So this is, it was really, really, really hard for some of my friends on this. So you don't want to be in the same situation. So what a lot of Danes do, so if they need to rent their, let's say, old apartments, is that they rent to friends and they rent to people that they know and to people that they would trust, wouldn't take them to the rental board, while at the same time not really killing them on the rent, but putting them what they would both agree is a fair price. So something to keep in mind. Then as well, for instance, some people would rent through a company and then the company would deal with all this rental control and be careful and so on. So again, not be a private individual rented to another private individual, but have a company in between that rents to the end person as well, and find a specific set of tenants, being companies and so on, who, let's say, promise not to do the rent control thing as well. The second thing as well is that if you're looking from the other side, you're renting and you want to activate this rent control thing that you heard in this video, there are specific services that will help you to do this. I'll link in the video descriptions below. I have not used any of them myself, but so far from what I hear, they actually help you lower your rent as well. So that's it for this video. If you want to hear more about all these rules and regulations that there are when you need to buy a property in Denmark, make sure you click that subscribe button below, make sure you like my video, and you will get more of this material in the future as well. With that, I leave you with the next video over here. If you have any comments or any questions, just leave it down there below. I'll also be adding, as I said, a lot of extra materials in there as well. Thanks for watching and see you next time.